today, Ms. Kirbie Anderson. She's a clinician here at Nashville Emotional Wellness Counseling, and she's going to be here today answering some of our questions that we're burning for her to answer. So, Kirbie, could you introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Kirbie Anderson, licensed clinical social worker. Currently therapist at New, also practicing social worker at the VA, working with veterans, particularly women veterans that experience domestic violence. A little bit about myself. I like to travel. I love to learn, like to read. That's a little bit about myself.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we're going to jump right into our questions here. Okay. So for me, Kirbie, the prominent reason I want to become a therapist is to connect and support individuals in their pursuit of emotional wholeness. So why are you a therapist and what attracted you to become one?
So I never thought I would be a therapist. The funny thing about it, my undergraduate is in psychology, and my graduate degree, of course, is in social work. I always thought that I would stay on the macro side of social work, but the more I practice on the macro side, the more that I find myself providing direct care to individuals. And that was regarding family members. It could have been friends. It could have been strangers on the street. Just offering kind of my insight, advice if they ask for it, opinions. So I guess particularly becoming a therapist is when I kind of realized that I may have something to offer somebody.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
And just following up for question 2, it kind of tags along with 1. But for me, from my own personal experience, the significance of having one person that exhibits empathy and creating a safe space for you has an impact to change the course of a life. So how have your life experiences shaped your perspective and approach as a therapist?
Particularly being an African-American woman, I can't say that I was surrounded around a family or around a community that actually engaged in therapy. So from having the lack of experience of therapy, I think has been profound in me connecting with the African-American population and realizing how important it is to have an outlet for mental health, and also just engaging in my own therapy and, being able to process life transitions and process certain things that we may deal with culturally.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, as an intern, I'm developing my own processes and defining specific modalities of interest. So what is your practice modality, and can you explain your clinical process before, during, and after a client session?
So I tend to lean towards eclectic. I don't know if you heard much about eclectic, but I pull from particularly existing modalities. So whether if that's CBT, ACT, I am now going to become EMDR trained, so I will pull from there. Pulling from Gottman if I'm working with couples. So I pull from all different modalities to try to develop my own treatment plan to try to help the client based on their pre-existing issue, I would say, or complaint. Clinical process. So prior to actually meeting a client for session, I would kind of, depending on where we are, if it's the first session, I'll review the intake, make sure I have a clear understanding. If I have other medical records from maybe another provider that they want to, I will review those. When actually meeting with a client, I kind of go over the intake, make sure I have any understanding, kind of get any questions that I need answered, kind of discuss with them what therapy will look like with me. This is my style, because you want to make sure that you are compatible to each other. I kind of discuss what they're looking for. What style of therapy have they had in the past that worked? What didn't work? What is it that you will want to do differently, and see if we can possibly accommodate that. I also just generally, first session, go through the logistics piece. Do we want a set time to meet every week or every, bi-weekly? what that look like. Do I want to see you face to face? Do I want to see you virtually? So kind of getting that logistics part out the way. And then going in, to the biopsychosocial assessment, trying to get that background history, because we all know our history particularly makes us who we are now, and particularly how we behave as adults in relationships and any other interactions that we have. So doing a biopsychosocial, I will get that done. Once I'm done and kind of have a clear understanding of the whole environmental experience, that's social work and my ecological framework that I come from. So I'm looking at the environment. I will move into particularly what the client is wanting. I can have a general idea of what I think they need, but I need to know particularly what they want and what they're here for. So once I have an understanding, I am able to go and develop treatment goals. Once I develop treatment goals, I always go back and review them with the client, because once again, we have to be on the same page. And once again, it also assists with the building of the rapport, because it's ultimately their process, it's not mine. So like I said, we'll go over the treatment goals, get their approval, make changes if needed. Once that's done, we are going to, initially working that treatment plan, ideally. I do leave space for every session in the beginning for them to discuss if they have any crises or anything that may come up. I will give them the first 10 or 15 minutes so we can process that. So typically, we work the treatment plan, hopefully meet some goals. I kind of do a check-in every so often just to see how they're feeling. Do we still need to be going on this path? Has anything changed? Is there anything I need to change about myself? Because I am also growing and learning from them. Once I feel like we have maybe met the goals on the treatment plan, or, they're ready for discharge, I am there to help them make sure that they're able to carry on the skills that maybe they have learned in session. I am here to refer them out to any referrals that they may need or any aftercare. So maybe you may not need individual therapy anymore, but maybe this group will be better for you, just to kind of keep you in sustainment mode. So just doing referrals. After that, my general discharge is, how do you feel? You finished? You're finished on my end, but how do you feel? I can feel like someone's ready to discharge and they may not feel like they're ready to discharge. And we all know that termination can be hard for clients. So that's generally my process.
Thank you so much, especially for how much detail you just went into. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So for me, I'm a firm believer that we should never stop learning, growing, and evolving into better versions of ourselves. So what work do you do to prepare yourself for client sessions? And what do you believe is necessary to remain an effective therapist?
I am probably constantly on Amazon ordering books. I'm ordering books, I'm ordering workbooks. I am listening to podcasts, I'm attending seminars, I'm attending trainings. I also have a mentor that I'm actually meeting with this evening that I process things with, rather if it's a particular client that I feel like I'm stuck with, kind of see what direction to go in, rather if things are going good, I process that with her too. Also, I process what I may feel like I would need to do as an intervention to see if it'll match up. So it's a lot of processing, and I would say constant supervision.
So Kirbie, we all have a level of innate bias. So what are some ways that you identify and deal with your own biases when working with diverse clients? And how do you prevent them from affecting your client session?
Probably just trying to keep myself self-aware, always trying to be aware of knowing what my biases are. You have to once know what they are, knowing how they can affect your client. Also, that's another thing that I will process with my mentor and also through supervision is my biases. And also just knowing when the biases may actually get in the way and I have to refer out. So a big piece for me is always self-awareness.
And then can you also tell me about a time when your values were different from a client's active goals? And were you able to help them? And if not, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I run into that a lot. I am somewhat able to compartmentalize what I believe versus what they believe or how they behave. So I actually don't have an example where maybe they have clashed and I wasn't able to help them. But once again, I will always go back to mentoring and supervision to keep me on track with it. Not to say that I don't struggle with it, but I try not to bring it into the treatment of the client.
Very good. Thank you so much. So in a slightly different direction. So if I were not pursuing this field or this field wasn't in question, I would probably be a world traveler who blogs about people, countries, and the different cultural customs I encounter. So Kirbie, if you were not a therapist or engaged in this field in any way, what would you do and what would you be and why?
So actually, two things. I would probably be a food critic and travel all over the world and taste different foods from different cultures and write reviews on it. I'm still thinking about that. So one, I would be a food critic. Two, which I think is a little late for me now with my age, but I will probably go into the music industry, into A&R and recruiting talent for the record label.
Awesome. So last question. I actually am working on another project and it's called Professional Learning Communities in a Private Practice. So basically, maybe you would learn from different professional learning platforms, maybe human resources marketing, how to develop and build your own business. Would that be something that you would be interested in or possibly
Sure.
you would see yourself engaged in?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, this year is the year of me branching off. I'm preparing myself and manifesting myself to leave my full-time job to go full-time private practice. So yeah, most definitely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And before we close out, Kirbie, thank you again, but also, was there anything else that you wanted me to ask that I didn't ask or that you want us to know about you?
No, but feel free to shoot away if it's something that is more that you want to know. I don't know if I feel like I'm that interesting, but if it's anything that you feel like you can learn from me or that you want more detail about, you can reach out to me as well. So I don't mind.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kirbie. We're gonna wrap it up here for just a moment, but thank you so much for being here.